You're standing in front of one of the most powerful and unpredictable rulers in medieval history, a man who executes advisors on whims, a man who once ordered all the dogs in Cairo killed because their barking annoyed him, a man who burned down half a marketplace because he didn't like the prices. And you just told him you can't deliver on the impossible engineering project you promised. You have seconds to decide. Do you run? He'll hunt you down. Do you apologize? He'll kill you anyway. Or do you do what one scientist did in the year 1011? You start drooling on yourself, speaking nonsense, and pretending you've lost your mind completely. And you keep that act going for 10 years while secretly writing the most important scientific text of the medieval period and inventing the principles that will eventually create the camera, photography, and every visual technology you use today. This is Ibn al-Haytham, and his story is so absurd, so dramatic, and so important that the fact you've probably never heard of him is a crime against education. Media Point exists because the scientists who change the world aren't always the ones in textbooks. Sometimes they're the ones who had to fake insanity to survive long enough to do the work. And if that sounds like the kind of untold history that matters more than memorizing which European king did what, hit subscribe right now, because we're about to dive into one of the most brilliant acts of survival and scientific genius in human history. Let's do this. It's 1010 CE. Ibn al-Haytham is 45 years old. He's already famous across the Islamic world as a mathematician, physicist, and engineer. He's living in Basra, in what's now Iraq, and he's been saying something provocative. He claims he could regulate the flooding of the Nile River in Egypt. This is a huge deal. The Nile's annual floods are unpredictable. Sometimes they're too weak and there's famine. Sometimes they're too strong and they destroy everything. If someone could control the Nile, they'd solve Egypt's biggest problem. Word reaches the Fatimid caliph of Egypt, al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah. And here's where you need to understand who al-Hakim was. This man is clinically erratic. He rules Egypt and much of North Africa. He's religiously zealous. He's paranoid. He makes laws and reverses them days later. He once banned women from leaving their houses entirely. He killed the man who invented a perpetual motion machine for failing to deliver. He's intelligent but unstable, brilliant but terrifying. Al-Hakim hears about Ibn al-Haytham and thinks, perfect, bring him here. He sends an official invitation. Come to Egypt, regulate the Nile, and I'll reward you beyond imagination. Ibn al-Haytham accepts. Big mistake. He travels to Egypt with a team of engineers. They survey the Nile, they study the geography, they do the calculations, and Ibn al-Haytham realizes with growing horror that the project is impossible. The Nile is too massive, the geography is too complex, the engineering required would need technology that won't exist for centuries. He cannot do what he promised, and now he's standing in front of one of the most dangerous men alive, having to explain that he failed before even starting. Al-Hakim's response is predictable: rage. How dare you waste my time? How dare you claim abilities you don't have? Do you know what happens to people who disappoint me? Ibn al-Haytham knows exactly what happens. He's about to be executed, or imprisoned indefinitely, or tortured, or all three. So in that moment, he makes the most insane decision of his life. He starts acting insane, literally. He begins speaking gibberish, laughing at nothing, staring into space, making strange gestures, drooling. He commits completely to the performance, and it works. Al-Hakim, confronted with a man who's clearly lost his mind, doesn't execute him, because what's the point? You can't punish someone who doesn't understand punishment. Instead, Al-Hakim has him placed under house arrest. Ibn al-Haytham is confined to a small house in Cairo. He has to maintain the act whenever anyone's watching, for 10 years. He pretends to be insane while secretly conducting some of the most important scientific research in human history. Because here's the thing, house arrest gave him something he never had before: time. No teaching obligations, no professional duties, no distractions, just him, his thoughts, and the question that had obsessed him for years. How does vision work?
Ancient Greeks thought vision was active, that eyes emitted rays that touched objects, and that's how you see. This never made sense. If eyes emit light, why can't you see in the dark? But it was accepted theory for centuries. Ibn al-Haytham, locked in his house, decides to figure it out properly. He starts experimenting. He builds a dark room. He makes a small hole in one wall, and he observes that light from outside projects an inverted image on the opposite wall, the first camera obscura. He realizes vision is passive. Light bounces off objects, enters the eye through the pupil, and the brain processes the image. This is correct. This is how vision actually works. And he proves it through experiments, not philosophy. He writes all of this down in a book called Kitab al-Manazir, the Book of Optics. 7 volumes. It covers how light travels in straight lines, how reflection works, how refraction works, the anatomy of the eye, the psychology of perception, and the mathematical principles behind all of it. He develops the scientific method: observation, hypothesis, experimentation, conclusion, 400 years before Europeans claimed to invent it. He explains how lenses work, how curved surfaces bend light, how you could theoretically use lenses to magnify or project images. He's describing the fundamental principles that will eventually create glasses, microscopes, telescopes, cameras, projectors, and every optical device you use today. And he's doing all of this while pretending to be a madman so the caliph doesn't kill him.
In 1021, al-Hakim disappears. He goes for a walk one night and never comes back. Probably assassinated, but nobody knows for sure. With al-Hakim gone, Ibn al-Haytham can drop the act. He's free. He's 56 years old. He spent 10 years in house arrest, and he's written the most important book on optics in history. The Book of Optics gets translated into Latin in the 12th century. It becomes foundational to European science. Roger Bacon reads it. Johannes Kepler reads it. René Descartes reads it. Every European scientist working on optics is building on Ibn al-Haytham's work. When the first cameras are invented in the 19th century, they're using the camera obscura principle that Ibn al-Haytham discovered. The pinhole camera? That's his observation. Every camera, every smartphone, every visual recording device is a descendant of the work he did while faking insanity in house arrest. Now here's the question that should haunt you. How many other geniuses had to fake madness just to survive long enough to do their work? How many brilliant people were destroyed by paranoid rulers, oppressive systems, or unstable societies before they could contribute? Ibn al-Haytham got lucky. His act worked. He survived. But how many others didn't? And here's the modern version. How many scientists, artists, thinkers today are trapped in systems that waste their potential? How many people are stuck in jobs that drain them, societies that suppress them, or situations where survival takes priority over contribution? Ibn al-Haytham's story is inspiring, but it's also tragic. He had to pretend to be insane for 10 years because telling the truth would have gotten him killed. That's not a functional system. That's a broken civilization wasting its best minds. So what's the lesson? Genius doesn't flourish in safety and comfort necessarily, but it definitely dies under tyranny and instability. Ibn al-Haytham's story is the exception, not the rule. For every scientist who survived by pretending to be mad, there are hundreds who just died. This is why stable institutions matter, why academic freedom matters, why protecting dissent and tolerating failure matters. Because the next Ibn al-Haytham shouldn't have to fake insanity to survive long enough to change the world. And if you're someone with ideas, with curiosity, with potential, find a way to protect your ability to think. Don't let systems, rulers, or circumstances destroy you before you contribute. Ibn al-Haytham invented principles that created the camera by hiding from a paranoid caliph for 10 years. Imagine what he could have done in a society that valued his mind instead of threatening his life. Now here's what you do. Every time you take a photo, remember you're using technology based on observations made by a man pretending to be insane in house arrest in 1011.
Every time you see a movie, watch TV, or use a camera, thank Ibn al-Haytham and recognize that the scientific method you were told Europeans invented was actually developed by a Muslim scientist 4 centuries earlier. If this made you rethink the history of science, if this made you realize how many untold stories are buried under Eurocentric narratives, you need to subscribe to MediaPoint right now. We find the geniuses who got erased, the stories that got buried, the truths that don't fit the official version. Hit that like button so this reaches people who need to know that the camera wasn't invented by some European in the 1800s. It was invented by a man faking madness in Cairo 800 years earlier. And drop a comment. Who else in history had to hide their genius just to survive? I'll see you in the next one.